melody to the Lord in your hearts, giving thanks to God the Father at all times and for everything, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Giving thanks for everything at all times, because God blesses us in so many ways. And as we acknowledge and are grateful for the gifts that God gives us, let us give our thanksgiving and pledges and donations and gifts, whatever language you wish to wrap that in, back unto the work of our Lord God through the service of the people in this church in his holy name. the world. Through grace, through mercy, through word. And I'm bringing that up because during the week I do a Bible study on Wednesdays, and I have a very wonderful, eclectic group of traditions. More often than not, I actually have very devout Roman Catholics and a handful of Protestants, some from other churches in the area. And one of the conversations we had this week is, this is one of the primary differences, one, not all, between the theology of the Catholic Church and the theology of a Protestant church. Because if you go to a Catholic Mass, which is where the term is used, Mass is a Catholic word for service, they're interchangeable. What is the one thing you know is going to happen? Communion. The sacrament of communion. And I've been reading a lot about the body and the blood recently, right, the past few weeks. And that is really where most of that is founded out of, I can never remember this really long word, but it starts with transubstantiation. Thank you, God. Transubstantiation. When they take in the bread and when they take in the wine, their belief is that that really is transformed into the physical, actual blood and body of Jesus Christ. In the Protestant, I'm not talking sacrament, I'm not going to compare that sacrament, that is not where I'm going. In the Protestant church, especially when you have a pastor with me who likes to talk, we focus on something a little different every Sunday. What is the one thing you can be guaranteed is going to happen in a Protestant church at any given service? The Bible, the Word, the sermon. You will find that Protestant churches spend more time focused on the Word of Christ than in the sacrament of communion. Now that does not mean the sacrament of communion is not important. It is very important. It is one of the only two sacraments that we partake in. So I kind of put that out there that really is a huge theological difference. It doesn't mean one is right and one is wrong. I am not saying that, nor do I imply that. I am saying it is a different understanding of the focus of worship. And I'm going to take you in a whole other direction now. You ready? 1 Kings. I'm going to have two separate little readings first, and then I'm going to share something, and then I'll share the rest of the reading out of chapter 3. You can find this reading on 301 through 303 in your pew Bibles. If you remember, some of you, this beginning of the summer, I started having a conversation about a young man who was named David. I'm going to wrap that up today with David. So chapter 2, verses 10 to 12. Then David slept with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. The time that David reigned over Israel was 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. So Solomon sat on the throne of his father, David, and his kingdom was firmly established. So Solomon was one of several sons to David. And you know, I want to just take a second to go back, and I want you to think about what that day and age was like. Not how we do things today, how things were done over 2,000 years ago with kingship. If you know anything about it, you know that usually the firstborn son is the one who's going to inherit the throne. Solomon was not that. David lost several children We spoke about one a few weeks ago. We talked about how he had had an affair with Bathsheba. We'll call it an affair, that's not really what it was, but with Bathsheba, and then he had Bathsheba's husband Uriah executed. Right? So David wasn't always a great guy, but that affair created a child. That child died. David was not permitted to have that child. Then if you were continuing to read through Samuel and Kings, because there's so much in here, there's another son that David loses at war with him, but David asked his own military to make sure his son Absalom survived. There was nothing that the military could do. You see, Absalom was riding on his horse when he ran to a tree, and there was nothing anybody could do. We lost a second son. There's another son who is the oldest son, who for Solomon to reign on the throne and establish his kingdom. Do you know where this is going? What happened to the other son? In that day and age, he was not permitted to survive, because if they permitted him to survive, he would have been against